The beige leather tote bag was resting on my kitchen chair. My mother-in-law, Patricia, had left it there while she went to the patio to complain about the weather to my husband. A thick, glossy paperback book was protruding from the top zipper. I reached out and pulled the book free. I stared at the cover. I didn't feel the urge to scream. I just felt a cold, hyper-focused drive to protect my grandfather's legacy at any cost. The cover featured a professionally photographed portrait of Patricia holding a rustic wooden spoon. The title was printed in elegant, swirling typography, The Heritage Kitchen by Patricia Harrison. I flipped the book open. I recognized the dedication page immediately. I recognized the introductory paragraph. I recognized the exact, meticulous measurements for a braised lamb ragu that took me 7 months to perfect. This was my manuscript for the past 3 years. I had dedicated every spare weekend to translating my late grandfather's handwritten culinary journals from a rare, regional Italian dialect. I had painstakingly tested and digitized over 200 complex recipes. It was a deeply personal tribute to my heritage. I was preparing to pitch it to literary agents next month. Patricia was a woman who considered microwaving a frozen dinner to be an exhausting culinary endeavor. She possessed zero talent, but she harbored a desperate, consuming desire to be recognized as a sophisticated lifestyle guru among her country club peers. I walked onto the patio holding the book. My husband, Marcus, was holding a pair of grilling tongs. He saw the paperback in my hand. He did not look surprised. He looked annoyed. Marcus sighed heavily and placed the tongs on the table. "Listen, Alina, do not make a big deal out of this. Mom found the files on our shared home network. She just wants to self-publish a few copies for her friends. It gives her a project. You can always write another book later." He spoke to me as if I was a child complaining about a stolen crayon. He actively helped his mother commit intellectual property theft because it was easier than telling her no. He handed over 3 years of my grief, my heritage, and my hard work so Patricia could impress a group of women who secretly despised her. Arguing with Marcus was a trap I refused to step into. He would only twist my words, accuse me of being unsupportive, and play the victim. I needed leverage, not an apology. I placed the book on the patio table. I told them both I hoped the recipes turned out well. I walked back inside the house. I went directly to my home office. I opened my primary computer. Patricia and Marcus were incredibly careless. They assumed self-publishing a book on a major global digital distribution platform was an anonymous, foolproof process. They did not understand the severe, unyielding legal architecture of federal copyright law. I had officially registered the raw manuscript with the United States Copyright Office 4 months prior. I held the irrefutable, time-stamped certificate of authorship. I also had a secondary failsafe. When I compiled the digital files, I embedded a specific, invisible watermark in the formatting code of the document. More importantly, I used a classic cartographer's trap. I included 3 entirely fabricated, incredibly obscure ingredients in a recipe hidden deep in the dessert section. They were ingredients that did not exist in any botanical registry. Anyone who printed that exact recipe was undeniably holding my specific text. I began drafting a formal, Digital Millennium Copyright Act takedown notice. I did not send it to Patricia. I sent it directly to the Legal Compliance Division of the global distribution platform she used to print and sell the book. I attached my federal registration certificate. I highlighted the fictitious ingredients. I provided the IP logs showing the exact date Marcus copied the document from my protected drive. The corporate response was incredibly swift. Major publishing platforms face astronomical fines for hosting stolen intellectual property. The compliance officer confirmed receipt of the evidence. They informed me that an internal investigation was underway and immediate. Protective measures would be applied to the contested ASIN number. I did not tell Marcus. I went to work every day. I cooked dinner. I listened to him talk about his mundane office politics. I watched Patricia post endless promotional graphics on her social media, calling herself a visionary culinary artist. She was reveling in her stolen identity. 2 weeks later, the launch party arrived. Patricia had rented out a beautiful, independent boutique bookstore in the affluent historic district. She invited 40 people. She set up a catered buffet near the front window, ironically, because the food was supplied by a cheap local chain restaurant, because Patricia was entirely incapable of cooking the recipes she claimed to have written. Marcus wore a tailored suit. He walked around the bookstore, handing out champagne flutes, acting like the proud son of a celebrity. I attended the event. I wore a simple black dress. I stood near the biography section, sipping sparkling water, watching the theater unfold. Patricia was seated at a large oak table in the center of the room. A stack of her glossy paperbacks was arranged perfectly beside her. She held an expensive fountain pen. She was signing copies with dramatic flourishes, laughing loudly, soaking in the praise from her wealthy peers. "Oh, the braised lamb took me years to perfect," Patricia told a woman in a designer coat. "It is all about listening to the ingredients. You have to feel the heritage in the kitchen." I took a slow sip of my water. A man in a plain gray suit walked through the front doors of the bookstore. He carried a leather briefcase. He bypassed the catered buffet and the mingling guests. He walked directly toward the manager of the bookstore, who was standing near the cash register. The man presented a badge and handed the manager a thick envelope. The bookstore manager opened the document. His eyes widened. He looked immediately at Patricia. The manager stepped out from behind the counter. He walked over to the signing table. The man in the gray suit followed him. "Mrs. Harrison," the manager said. His voice cut through the ambient chatter. The guests stopped talking and turned to look. "I need you to stop signing those books immediately." Patricia looked up, her fountain pen hovering over a title page. She offered a confused, condescending smile. "Excuse me, I am in the middle of a private event." The man in the gray suit stepped forward. He was a legal courier representing the publishing platform. He placed a formal, incredibly intimidating document directly on top of her glossy books. "Patricia Harrison," the courier announced clearly. "You are being served with a federal cease and desist order regarding the unauthorized reproduction of copyrighted material." The atmosphere in the bookstore evaporated. The affluent guests stared in absolute silence. Marcus stopped pouring champagne. He froze, the bottle suspended over a crystal flute. "What is this nonsense?" Patricia snapped. Her face flushed an uneven, angry red. "I wrote this book. My distributor set this up." "Your distributor has permanently terminated your account, ma'am," the courier replied. His tone was completely professional and utterly unforgiving. The platform verified a legitimate DMCA claim against this title. The federal copyright belongs to an Elena Harrison. Your digital sales have been frozen. The royalties have been seized pending a fraud investigation. Marcus dropped the champagne bottle. It hit the hardwood floor, cracking near the base. The expensive liquid pooled around his polished shoes. He stared at the courier in horror. Furthermore, the courier continued, addressing the bookstore manager. "The platform requires the immediate confiscation of all physical copies currently on these premises, as they are classified as illicit counterfeit goods." The manager nodded quickly. He did not want his independent store implicated in a federal intellectual property dispute. He signaled to his employees. 2 young bookstore workers walked over with cardboard boxes. They began taking the books right off Patricia's display table. "You cannot do this!" Patricia shrieked. She slammed her hands flat on the oak table. "Marcus, do something! Call our lawyer. They're stealing my work." Marcus's smug posture collapsed entirely. The brutal reality of federal fraud charges finally pierced through his delusion. He looked entirely paralyzed. He looked at the books being tossed unceremoniously into the cardboard boxes. He finally scanned the room and saw me standing quietly near the bookshelves. He finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. He realized I did not just let them take my manuscript. I waited until they tied their names, their finances, and their public reputations to a stolen asset before pulling the structural support out from under them. Patricia noticed Marcus staring at me. She turned her head. Her expression shifted from outrage to sheer, unadulterated panic. The wealthy women from her country club were watching her closely. They were watching a fraud get dismantled in real time. "You did this!" Patricia hissed, her voice trembling. "You published my grandfather's journals, Patricia," I replied calmly from across the room. I simply ensured the correct author received the legal credit. The courier handed Marcus a secondary envelope. The corporate legal department is also pursuing a civil suit for the recovery of all preliminary printing costs and damages related to the breach of the platform's terms of service. The courier added, "Have your representation contact our office by Monday?" The guests began to leave. They did not say goodbye to Patricia. They set their champagne flutes on random shelves and hurried out the front door, eager to escape the humiliating scene. Hay would spend the next month gossiping endlessly about how Patricia Harrison tried to pass off stolen recipes as her own. Her social standing was permanently eradicated. The bookstore employees carried the boxes of books to the back storage room. The display table was completely bare. Marcus walked toward me. His shoulders slumped. He looked desperate. "Elena, please, we can fix this." "You did not have to humiliate her like this. We will give you the rights back." "You cannot give me what already belongs to me, Marcus," I said. I didn't need to deliver a dramatic speech. I just handed the manager my empty water glass, left them standing in the wreckage of their public humiliation, and went home to pack my bags.